Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nintendo Everything Refresh, the weekly show where we keep you up to date as to everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. I'm your host, Nick Serpa, joined today by Louisa Shreya.
Hello everyone!
And we've got Nicholas Shade.
Hello!
And Nicholas, welcome to the United States. This is going to make our recordings even easier for the future. All right, folks. So we got a pretty big week. Obviously, this is Fire Emblem week, and I was really hoping that Dennis would be able to join us this episode. We're hoping to have him next episode because right now Dennis is the main guy on the site who's playing Fire Emblem right now, and I really want to hear his thoughts on the game. But we are going to talk a little bit about it, of course, it being the big game this week. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Persona 3 and 4 ports that came out, as well as a bunch of other just announcements and news updates this week. But let's start off with the main course, Fire Emblem Engage. Finally out, and overall, seems like it's getting pretty good reviews across the board. There's obviously some caveats to that. You know, it's definitely a big change from Three Houses. And I think that has been what some people really like about it and what some people don't like as much about it. Seems like that's kind of where the split is. I think the main takeaway, just looking at some of the reviews for this game that came out this week, with the caveat being that none of us have played it yet, some folks, are very much like glad that this seems to be a more strategy-focused experience. And where I'm seeing the other half of the divide is that some folks feel like the social elements have been toned down and simplified so much that it feels like a step back in that area. That's kind of been my takeaway. I don't know about you guys.
For the most part, it does seem like it kind of refocuses very much on being an interesting, innovative strategy RPG. And the story and outside elements are kind of just conduits to that gameplay as opposed to being like their own side elements that you really are supposed to get super deep into.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice because looking at the Fire Emblem series in the more recent games since Fire Emblem Awakening, when the series actually managed to get a lot of sales, I think one of the aspects that people usually claim to be one of the reasons why Fire Emblem got so popular since the 3DS was the social aspect, right? A lot of the possibilities to get the characters together, to have these support conversations. And I think Three Houses was like the highest point where you had a lot of social aspects in the game. It was almost like a Persona game in some sense. Like a lot of the elements, a lot of the mechanics were very similar to the Persona. So I found it interesting to see that they decided to have a step back, and I think this will please a lot of the OG fans of the franchise, like the people who really like the strategy aspect, the combats of the game. To be honest, I really loved Three Houses. I think the game was spectacular. I loved all the social aspects, but I'm super interested and curious to see the approach that they had here in Fire Emblem Engage. I know that it is not the same thing, but I like to see something different. I like to see that they are trying to go to a different route than just doing a Three Houses 2, something along those lines. I like to see they try to do something different here.
Yeah, I think that's probably just the main takeaway, is that it's not like this new, or quote-unquote new approach is bad. It's just going in a different direction.
Exactly.
And like you said, it's kind of nice in a way, because if you want that super like social aspect heavy game, you have Three Houses. If you want something that's a little bit more traditional, that focuses a bit more on just the combat, you have this. So, there's an option for everyone.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, I think. Yeah, and I do kind of think with the route that they've taken, really leading into the past of the franchise with this game, you're bringing in all these support characters from previous games that you're engaging with. Obviously that's the main mechanic, but it seems like that, because of that also seems to be part of the reason why the social aspects have been toned down. Because when you think about just the sheer amount of characters in this game, I mean, it really is quite impressive. But, some of the reviews that I read this past week were saying, well, because of that, the actual like dialogue and, that's part of the reason why that doesn't feel as fleshed out, which I think makes sense when it's kind of looked at through that lens. But yeah, with the conversation around, switching back to the more tactics focus, the general consensus seems to be that, the tactics gameplay in this game is among the strongest and the most polished that it's ever been. And so I think that kind of trade-off, at least in my head, it might be worth it if we're getting this, like, probably the most polished tactical gameplay that we've gotten so far moving forward and carried to other games in the franchise. I think it's worth it for this kind of more experimental approach. I think, it's to your point, Nicholas, about there just being like an option for everyone. I think it's just such a big shift from where this franchise used to be. Like we're now awash with Fire Emblem games, and there's pretty much something for everyone at this point.
Yeah, if you want social sims, you have Three Houses. If you want sort of social sim but more combat focused, you have this. And if you want, I guess, very old school, you have the limited time NES one that was released like last year.
Yeah.
Yes, and if you want a Muso hack and slash, you've got that now too.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
There you go.
If you want a Muso hack and slash that has more social elements, there's that too.
Yeah, Three Hopes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I really do want to talk to Dennis since he's actually played through the game and we'll have more. I think the main reason why I haven't picked up this game yet is partially because of time. Like we've talked about this in the past, but there's so much coming out in February that I know if I start this game now, there's no chance of me beating it before like the next thing on my calendar, I don't know if you guys are in the same boat as me or not with that. Well, I'm curious why you guys haven't picked up the game yet.
To be honest,
in my case, you can go ahead if you want.
No, I was just going to say, to be honest, I don't have the game yet for a technicality because I really wanted to have it day one. I looked all the trailers. I'm super excited to play. However, usually here in Brazil, there's a website who has a partnership with Nintendo, and they sell the digital codes for the game. And usually at day one, they sell the games with a 15% discount. So I'm still waiting for that because sometimes they have a little bit of a delay. Probably this week it will be available, but I'm just waiting for that to have the game because I really want to play it.
Yeah, no, that's a good reason. I think I would wait for a 50% discount if that was an option.
Yeah, it's always nice.
Yeah.
I think for my part, the game looks good. I have nothing against it, really. Like, I don't think it looks bad or anything. It just... I think I might pick it up later on sale, but as it is, based on what I saw, there just wasn't enough of a selling point for me. I do like the focus on the tactical gameplay, but I only like strategy RPGs. I'm generally more of a more traditional turn-based RPG kind of person. Sure. So that's not enough of a selling point by itself. And I guess the world building and characters that they've shown off just haven't captured me as much as the ones shown for Three Houses. It just doesn't do enough for me. And also, I'm going to be honest, the whole engage, focusing on old characters thing really, really doesn't do anything for me because they've had a similar mechanic for... God, they've had something similar since
Several
Awakening.
Games. Oh, yeah.
Since Awakening had something similar, and they've had that for every single game they've done, except for Three Houses and Three Hopes, I think. So the idea of, oh, look, you have crossover Marth and whatnot. It's like, I've had crossover Marth for 10 years.
Right.
This is nothing special.
Yeah,
but,
no, that's totally a big element of it. And I mean, and as someone who has only kind of dabbled in Fire Emblem personally, don't get me wrong, I love a good strategy RPG from time to time, but there's a lot of these games I haven't played all of them. So the idea of a game just kind of centered around the nostalgia for these past characters, I feel like I might be missing out on something, Like I feel like I might be picking up this game and not really getting it,
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I also haven't played anything really before Awakening. I played a tiny bit of one of the GBA ones, but that's it. So I don't have much experience with those characters either.
Right.
Yeah.
Which doesn't necessarily mean that this game can't be enjoyed in spite of it. I mean, I would hope that, the developers would realize that not everyone can go back and play these games that were never localized or anything like that.
I feel
yeah.
like because I'm on the same boat. I never played anything before Awakening, right? So, but I feel that with this one, there's enough original content to enjoy beyond the fan service. Of course, there's a lot of fan service for the old fans and stuff like that, but yeah, I agree with Nicholas, and to be honest, I think the biggest reason why I want to play Fire Emblem right now is that I'm just excited to start the year with a big JRPG, because the last one that I played, I think, was Blade 3, so I have this hunger for a JRPG right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very tempting watching everyone play and discuss it.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you. Well, cool. Well, yeah, so the game is out now, and like I said, hopefully we'll have a chance to talk a little bit more about it with Dennis, because he is diving in deep into that game. But some other news just adjacent to it. We learned in an interview this week that more features are coming to the Somnial at some point. So they're going to be adding a free update to the game, not part of the expansion pass. That all they've said is just going to add some more facilities. So I'm wondering if that will alleviate some of the criticisms of folks saying that the Somnial feels kind of empty compared to, just not as exciting of a hub world compared to Three Houses. But we shall see. So yeah, that's scheduled for sometime this summer. And then on top of that, we learned that Fire Emblem is getting a manga adaptation, which is kind of funny because, again, this is like, folks are saying that the narrative is not kind of the main thing for this game, but yeah, there's a manga coming out sometime starting in March is like the first official release.
Yeah, the existence of the manga is making me
if I'm
think
not
that
mistaken, it's a prequel, right?
So it says in February there's like a prologue chapter, and then in March is when the proper, release of the manga comes out.
I see.
I don't know if we know too much about the actual plot of it, but
the existence of the manga is interesting because compared to something like Three Houses, which didn't get this, it feels like we kind of have a bit more of a marketing push for Engage. So it makes me wonder if maybe this is them trying to just kind of bump the notoriety of the game up a bit, try and make it sort of Awakening-like in terms of giving the series another second wind, I guess. Maybe have the Emblem characters existing and use those to sort of create an introduction to the legacy of the franchise. If they want to open the gates to other remakes of past games like they had for the 3DS one, it'd be kind of a gateway to get people interested in that.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I agree, and I think it's kind of related to the fact that this game is kind of a celebration, right? It's kind of a celebration of the franchise, and it feels like they just want to put a lot of merchandising related to this. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I agree with the marketing standpoint.
What they should do is start collaborations with Pepsi and Colgate.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
They're halfway there with the character designs. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm sure a lot of work went into the design of the main protagonist, but it's just, it lacks the, I don't know. Would you say there's any real subtlety to the characters of Fire Emblem? I feel like there's a level of nuance and, to some of them in previous entries, like, there's a level of, I don't know what the right word is, but they're not trying to like throw the fact that have all these like basic anime archetypes in your face, and then you just have the protagonist of this game. So
I kind of like it, but it's silly.
I mean, to be honest, overall I really like the character design of the game. I mean, not only the protagonist but all the characters. The artist, I think her name is something Picasso. I don't remember exactly her name. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Picasso. Of course.
She's
Cubism has really gone too far.
She's been posting a lot of arts of each of the main characters, and honestly, her arts, when you see, not actually in game, but her arts is amazing. I think you can really see the effort that is behind the game. But I can agree that seeing all these characters interacting in the game, it's really, really over the top. But yeah, it's it's anime. It's what they're trying to do here. So I think you can get used to it while playing it.
Yeah, I'm sure it would grow on me over time. Well, hey, talking about what's old being new again, this is another big release this week. And normally we talk about releases towards the end of the show, but it's a big game, so I wanted to talk about it up here. Finally, the ports of Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden are out now on Switch. And as predicted, people are loving them. I mean, it's a lot of folks' first experience playing these games, which are finally available on every modern platform. So yeah, these are finally out now. There was an interview this week that was translated by Persona Central, just kind of talking about the work that went on and bring these games, mainly with Persona 3 Portable. Oh my gosh, it's a hard thing to say. Persona 3 Portable. A lot of alliteration there. But yeah, they were talking about the work that went into bringing that game over. Which I'll admit, at first glance, it doesn't seem like, it seems like it's a pretty straight port. Like, it seems like they made things sharper, obviously, to run on the Switch versus the original PSP. But when I was looking at the port of Persona 3 Portable in particular, I was like, man, they really couldn't have done a little bit more. Like at the very least, I had been hoping that they would replace the still static images of the PSP version with the fully animated cutscenes, and I just don't really understand why that wasn't possible. But I think beyond that, if you're looking at the ports compared to each other, you can see that they did put in a good amount of work translating things into higher quality 3D models and backgrounds and things like that.
Yeah, I mean the Persona 3 situation was always going to be a little bit weird, right? Because there's 3 versions of the game, and I think at least 2 of them have certain things that are exclusive to one another. So there wasn't an existing best version. And I guess they just didn't want to, because it's one thing already, they had to put in a lot of work to remaster it, and that's one thing, but I guess they just didn't want to have to bother having to actually redo parts of the game to try and fuse both aspects of the different versions. Because, the other games were pretty straight ports. 4 Golden and 5 that came out in October, I believe. So I guess they just didn't want to... they didn't want to put in that extra effort, which makes sense to an extent. It is extra cost and extra time for only one of them, which is the oldest one, and also I would assume is probably the one that the least people are going to play, because I feel 5 and 4 probably have a bit more... are just more well-known than 3 is.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I feel like more people have played 5 and 4 to some extent than even 3.
Yeah.
So I think there might be a lot of folks who are curious about 3 who just have never really had a convenient way to play it.
I mean, 4 Golden was one of probably 2 or 3 reasons to own a PS Vita. So it has that claim to fame.
Whoa. Don't go dissing on my PS Vita.
I said 2 or 3. There's 2 or 3 reasons.
On there. Hey.
Yeah, I think Nicholas was pretty reasonable.
This is a separate conversation we're going to need to have at some other point. Go dissing my PS Vita.
Bring it up with Sony. It's not my problem.
Oh my god. What I would give for another Sony handheld... I would give a lot of things.
Oh, I agree with that point. Yeah, I think we should have more portable consoles, not only Nintendo in the game.
Yeah, I do feel like, I know we're getting sidetracked a little bit here, but I do feel like if it were to ever happen, if Sony and Microsoft were to ever put out handheld consoles, the time would be now, because with the Switch's success, overwhelming success, the Steam Deck last year showing just how big of an appetite there was to play these big games on handheld systems. I could see it happening at some point in the future. Will they actually do it, though? Who knows?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine right now. But just going back to Persona, I think I'm one of those people who played Persona 5 but never played Persona 4 and Persona 3. So this will actually be my first opportunity to play both of those games, and I'm really, really excited. I don't know, because here's the thing. Everyone says that Persona 4 is amazing. It's for some people it's even better than Persona 5, so I'm super excited to play this one. But I don't know if I'm going to play Persona 3 first, because a lot of people say to me, no, this one is great, but he's obviously he aged a little bit more, so it's a little more old school experience. And in the case of the portable ports, it feels like a visual novel with some dungeons, because you don't have that open exploration and stuff like that. So I'm not as excited to play Persona 3 as I am excited to play Persona 4. So I'm trying to decide which one of those I'm going to play first, because I would like to play first the Persona 3 and then go to Persona 4 to not get that feeling of playing first the more complete game than going to the last complete one. But I think both are probably great experiences. So either way, I just want to play both games on the Switch.
I think it's worth noting that there have been rumors. I mean, these are unsubstantiated, so you take it with a bucket load of salt. But there have been rumors that there is an actual remake of Persona 3 that's in the works. That would be interesting to see, considering the port that just happened, and that could be the answer to the whole question of like, what is the definitive version? If they put out a version that actually does combine. But again, that sounds very much like wish fulfillment, so...
True.
No, those rumors have been going on for a long time, and you're right that they're unsubstantiated, but Atlas has said they have more games that they're going to be talking about later this year, so, we don't really know what those are yet, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. But Louise, I can tell you, I mean, I haven't beaten Persona 3, but I have played a little bit of it. I've beaten Persona 4, and I think I wouldn't skip over Persona 3, because thematically it's a much darker game compared to Persona 4. It is definitely an older experience that I think shows its age a little bit more than Persona 4, especially Persona 4 Golden, which is the port version. So I think you might have a harder time from a gameplay perspective going from 4, which gives you certain things. Like in 4 Golden, you have a full overworld you can explore. You have more, let's just say, overall higher production values, right?
Right.
So I think going from that to this particular port of 3 might be a challenge. But the story of 3, again, I haven't finished it, but just thematically it's extremely interesting. I think it would be a shame to skip it entirely.
Right. I think I'll play Persona 3. If I don't actually buy it, I'll at least try to start it on the Xbox, because it's on Game Pass, right? So I can actually have a feel for the game and how it actually plays. I think I'll probably do that first.
Yeah, no, I think that's a solid option for sure. But yeah, and the other thing worth noting with these ports is they put them out both for $20 each. So fairly affordable, which I think helps take the sting off them being pretty straight ports a little bit,
honestly,
at least for me.
Yeah, I was afraid of seeing full prices after seeing that Persona 5 had gone through that route, but I was pleased seeing how much it actually cost.
It just makes Persona 5 a little bit odder.
Yeah, but to be honest, Persona 5 has already seen 2 sales on the eShop.
True.
So yeah, it's pretty reasonable so far.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about some of the news that we got this week. Starting with a pretty surprising, I guess this would be considered more of a remaster. Not a remaster that I think anyone had on their bingo card for 2023. Dokapon Kingdom. So I had only heard of this game. So we're getting it seems like it's mostly a remaster. It's called Dokapon Kingdom Connect. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Dokapon Kingdom, this was a Wii and PlayStation 2 era, a party board game that I guess plays out like an RPG. So you play it with friends, but I guess the actual mechanics of the game resemble RPGs. Nicholas, you seem to know a little bit about this game.
I haven't played it personally, but I've actually watched a decent amount of content on it. So I am familiar with it. It's like you said, it's a kind of party board game, sort of Monopoly-like in that you earn properties to generate money. But the main gimmick here is that it very much plays out like an RPG. All the characters you have individual classes and levels. There's reclassing systems. Everything that you do generally involves fighting enemies. And so there's a whole combat system tied to that. It's even to the extent that if you're doing a full playthrough of the game with friends, like a campaign run basically, which is essentially, you know, like doing a 20-turn Mario Party game, but in this case you go through all the story beats, that takes you like 30 hours. It's a full RPG experience.
Really?
It has save files.
Oh god.
Wow.
It's a lot.
That's crazy. I didn't realize it was that substantial of an experience. I mean, I guess I could, like, in my head I was picturing like, oh yeah, it's Mario Party but with turn-based combat. But you're saying that there's a lot more depth to it than
At the very least, there's a lot more length to it. But no, it does have a lot of depth
Yeah, I
in
guess
terms of
depth
just
and
random
length are
events,
about the
lots
same.
of different RPG mechanics, just tons of stuff that can happen, lots of different biomes. I mean, I think you can level from level 1 to 99, and it's pretty standard RPG progression, so there is a lot of room to grow and explore and just pursue whatever objectives you want.
Yeah, it looks really charming.
It's also one of the
Yeah,
bigger friendship enders, is my understanding.
Oh dear.
I don't think I've ever saw a full JRPG, multiplayer JRPG. I'm seeing the trailer, and apparently has you can play online with your friends, right?
Yeah.
So basically, you can stop and then return from the same point that you started with your friends and keep the campaign going. It's a really commitment to play this with some friends.
You can also play shorter games. Like, I think kind of in a Monopoly-esque way, you just set a turn limit, and whoever has the most money by the end of that turn wins.
Oh, I see.
But you have that option for, like, if you really want to go in and get deep into this game, you can do the entire campaign playthrough, and it's long.
Yeah, I was pretty much sold on this game when I saw in the trailer. They make a point to say there are lots of ways to annoy your friends. Like there's a whole mechanic where you can like rob people, basically. Like you can rob different characters, and I'm like, or ways like sabotage each other's towns in creative, silly ways. I'm like, okay, I could see this being totally fun with like-minded.
It's like
friends.
Mario Party, where if you land on the same space as someone else, you battle them. Of course, it's like the RPG system battles rather than mini games. But if you defeat the other players, you can steal stuff from them, and then you can also prank them. So you can change their hairstyle, you can change their name, you can put graffiti on their character. Yeah,
That's incredible, man. Yeah, I don't know how this is happening, but anytime there's like one of these obscure Wii games coming back to the Switch, like for really just no good reason. I mean, other than, I don't mean to say that like they shouldn't have done it, but like it's just like, I don't know, it just seems so random sometimes. But I'm like, okay, this is now on my radar. Awesome. Well, yeah. So Dokapon Kingdom Connect is scheduled to come out at some point soon. I don't think we know exactly when. Sometime this spring is the rumbling. So yeah. Now in terms of other games that we got some news about, this one was rumored for a little while and is officially confirmed. Will actually be out pretty soon. Powerwash Simulator is coming to Switch on January 31st. Now for those who aren't familiar with this one, this game it kind of popped off last year. There's kind of this niche community that has gotten bigger over the years that just love these types of simulator games. And this one is just all about cleaning things with a power washer, which doesn't sound exciting, but apparently it's the kind of game that is just very like meditative and makes that certain part of your brain feel good when you're trying to like clean stuff. I haven't played it myself, but it's seems like a good fit for the Switch.
Yeah, I mean, if you are one of those people who like to scroll on Facebook, on Instagram, or TikTok, and you're just seeing those videos of people washing stuff, I don't know if you guys ever saw that, but stuff that is really satisfying to see. I think the game is trying to appeal to that niche.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the weird thing with this one, and this was weird at the time it came out, it's still weird to me now, but this game is published by Square Enix for some reason. When I was at Summer Games Fest last year, it was like one of like the only games that they had. Like Powerwash Simulator was their big game that they brought to Summer Games Fest, which was just so funny to me.
Yeah,
And,
I think Square saw the potential here.
Yeah, clearly. After they sold off most of their IP, they decided that Powerwash Simulator was where they wanted to invest their money.
This is the new pillar of our company.
Yeah, basically. The fifth pillar, if you will. Yeah. But yeah, what's weird is that when this game comes out, it's launching with free Tomb Raider DLC that will let you clean Lara Croft's mansion.
Oh my god, that's the dream, right?
Yeah, I think that's what everyone really wanted. I mean, it's basically a new Tomb Raider game at that point, you know?
True, exactly.
I think there is actually a new Tomb Raider game in development. I feel like I heard some rumblings about it. Something that like Amazon was involved with a new project, but I'm sure that that's going to be a long ways away. So yeah, in the meantime, you have this. You can clean Lara Croft's mansion, and damn it, you're going to be happy about it. So that's what you get. All right, so on top of that, here's another game that we knew a little bit about, and now we have some more details for. So a while back, there was an indie game that came out called Coffee Talk, which is basically a barista kind of simulator that also has some visual novel elements. You're talking with the various supernatural, otherworldly creatures that come into your coffee shop, and it's supposed to be a very heartwarming game. And the sequel to that, Coffee Talk Episode 2, Hibiscus and Butterfly, we now know it is coming out to Switch on April 20th. And it is getting a physical release. So yeah, that's exciting. This is one of those games that's also always just eluded me, but I've heard amazing things about the first one.
Yep, same thing.
Yeah, I remember seeing the first one while I was just scrolling on the eShop randomly. And I remember this is not directly related, but there's one feature that I really miss on the Switch eShop is that you see opinion of people who actually bought the game. Not even opinion, but if was even a rating system, like 5 stars, 4 stars. I think Wii U had something like that, because I was just interested to see how people who actually bought this thought of the game, because I love games like that, focus on the dialogue and with different characters and seeing interesting stuff happening. I just really like the style.
Yeah, this game is just beautiful. It's made by a very small team, and just a little bit of the background, there was a little bit of uncertainty whether it would come out because one of the main leads on the game unfortunately passed away. I think it was last year or in 2020. So for a while, the whole project was kind of up in the air, but there was a lot of community support, and it looks like they were able to make it happen. So it's good to see that, you know, their vision, you know, the guy who made this game, it's nice to see that this vision is, you know, being continued and brought to the conclusion that it was planned for.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, and I think the original is also on Switch.
Yes, I believe so.
So yeah. So yeah, if you're looking for a good indie to kind of round out the busy season, Coffee Talk Episode 2 is coming out in April 20th. So that will be exciting. All right, now I want to shine a light on an interesting Kickstarter project that I thought might be interesting to some of the folks who listen to our show. We're getting a lot of Pokemon-style games. We talked about a few of them last fall, and this is yet another one of those. It's called LumenTale Memories of Trey. It is a monster collecting RPG. But I think the big one that, the thing that really makes this game stand out, at least to me, was the art style. It looks really pretty. You've got, my first instinct was to call it HD 2D.
Yeah.
I don't think Square Enix's lawyers would like that. But yeah, you've got these beautiful sprite work in this 3D environment. You know, just gorgeous lighting and effects. It seems like it's got a lot of personality and a lot of potential to appeal to that community who likes these types of projects.
For everyone that says that they would have preferred if Pokemon had stayed sprite-based rather than moving to 3D models, I mean, regardless of how you feel about the current games, this might be something to check out because it really is a striking visual style that feels like more of a direct evolution to something like Black and White than what we currently have now.
I mean, seriously, I think all of us would prefer a visual style like this for the remake of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl than what we actually got.
I would prefer a lot of things for
this just look
Diamond and Shining
amazing.
Pearl.
I think it's perfect for a remaster, a remake of those old Pokemon games. But on its own right, it looks like a very nice game, a very nice original game.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. I mean, not to disparage the work of Game Freak, because I know, despite the criticisms of Scarlet and Violet, like, they do put a lot of work into those games. There are very passionate people who work at those companies who are trying to put out good products.
But
sometimes it does feel like these smaller teams working on these smaller indie projects, these Kickstarter projects, they really just tend to have a good pulse on like what at least certain large portions of the community are kind of looking for.
I mean,
I will say that, like, I don't think there are a lot of like casual Pokemon fans out there who love Scarlet and Violet. Like, I gave a copy of the game to my friend who asked for it for Christmas, and he loves it. And I haven't heard him complain about the performance or the visuals or anything like that. The gameplay, or really anything. So, the game is meeting the mark for some people, but I think for a certain other crowd, that's why these projects exist.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people want something that the Pokemon Company, even if the games still have their quality, and I think in the case of Scarlet and Violet, the core gameplay still is pretty great, and that's probably one of the reasons why we don't see so many people complaining about the game, because they are actually having fun, right? But for people who want more from Game Freak in other departments like the graphics and innovation and stuff like that, I think some of these indies are really hitting the mark right here. And at the end of the day, it's just great to see those different options all appearing to the players and everyone else. This one in particular, I think it's the best, let's say, Pokemon style indie game that I've ever saw, that I've been more interested, right? Just looking at the trailer, it just seems to be a huge adventure with many different designs. So if you're really inspired, really like a great experience.
I think it's definitely my favorite visually that I've seen of all of them, because this is really a very, very pretty game.
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you guys. And it's worth noting that this game just passed its Kickstarter goal for a Switch port, so it's probably going to be a little while till it actually comes out on the Switch. It's usually the case for these Kickstarter
I think the Kickstarter
projects.
is actually still open for a few more weeks. If anyone is interested in that.
It is. Yeah, it is open.
By the way, something I just something that I remember from what Nick was saying at the beginning. It's interesting to see the 8D 2D style in a colorful game, right? Because Octopath Traveler is beautiful, Triangle Strategy is beautiful, but I always want to see that style in a less monochrome experience, right? Because those games really have this style of a very strong color in the screen and stuff like that, and to see a super colorful game with that graphical style, it just looks amazing.
Yep.
Well, I mean, Live Alive was pretty colorful, right?
Live Alive was more colorful,
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of potential with that engine, and there's part of me that kind of hopes that at some point maybe Square Enix will license it out to other developers, because I think there's a lot of projects, especially remakes and things of that nature, and Square Enix is doing a good job using it. But I think there's a lot of potential for it to be something that other developers could utilize maybe at some point later in the engine's life, and maybe we'll get even more projects built.
Honestly, I'd be happy even if Square Enix just did more things with it. Like, give me a Xenogears HD2D remake. Chrono Trigger,
Chrono Trigger.
So much.
I mean,
Chrono Trigger,
Dragon Quest 3 is on its way, right? So, I think they're probably
in theory. And like, I don't know if we've mentioned it yet, but Octopath Traveler 2 is coming out in February, so it feels like we are getting multiple projects a year with it at this point, which is really cool.
True.
One quick delay we wanted to mention, coming out a little bit later now, is Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key. It has been delayed only by about a month, though. It was supposed to come out February 24th here in North America, February 22nd in Japan, and it's being pushed to about a month later, March 24th. So, yeah, they just said they need some extra time to fine-tune the game, but these are big games, so I'm not really surprised. And especially because I think this is the conclusion of this whole Atelier Ryza trilogy, so I'm sure they really want it to,
Right.
land.
And a month delay is not that bad, really.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
really.
I wonder if this is just an issue with logistic or stuff like that, because just a month doesn't seem like it's a problem with the actual game. Maybe it's another issue that happened with the publishing or stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm always shocked that they're Koei Tecmo. They put out these Atelier games every single year without fail.
Yeah.
It's shocking. These are consider how massive these games are. I have never played one, and I really want to, because they seem like they've just been getting better and better with each generation. I feel like I remember back in the PS3 and 360 era, I feel like I remember they didn't get the highest critical reception. They weren't anything earth shattering, so a lot of people skipped them, myself included. But it seems like with this past generation, everything that's come out on the Switch, seems like there's just a lot of really good games in that franchise.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who is the biggest fan of the franchise, and apparently there's this big lore and a lot of people really love those characters and stuff I don't know if particularly I would enjoy the series, but every time that I see the trailers, every time that I see something related, it seems to be a really well made kind of game, and it also surprises me how often they are actually coming out.
Yeah. Koei Tecmo has been, I think, kind of quietly putting out a lot of games on the Switch. Maybe not all the super big names that you'd expect, but you look at what they put out, and it's pretty impressive, all things considered.
I think Atelier is kind of becoming one of their big money makers too, one of their big flagships. A lot of people in particular seem to have jumped in with Ryza, for one reason or another. Cough, cough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But whatever works,
fair.
and the games do some good. So.
Yeah. It's just so hard. There's, as we've talked about many times, there's no shortage of RPGs on the Switch, and so it's when you're deciding what to get into next, it's I don't know, at least for someone in my position where I always feel like I'm behind on whatever's come out. I'm oh, do I really want to jump into this other big, massive series that has been going on for so freaking long?
This is the third Atelier Ryza game in a series that has a whole bunch of other Atelier games. There's such a backlog if you just want to try and experience all of it. It is intimidating.
And then a Nintendo Direct comes out and Square Enix announces 5 new JRPGs for the Switch.
Right. Yeah, I think I've heard that each of the sub-series are fairly self-contained. I think I've heard that the Ryza games, you can pretty much play them without having played any of the other ones in the franchise.
Yeah, I heard the same stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's on my backlog. What does that mean? Who knows? But does that mean I'll play it? I don't know.
Wait for a Steam sale.
Pretty much, yeah. Okay, now this is something that I personally am very excited about. I wanted to talk about it a few weeks ago, but it wasn't really Switch specific, so I kind of put it on the back burner. But now I'm feeling a little more excited. Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if you'll remember, but on the 3DS days, there was this. It was one of Game Freak's experimental indie projects. It was called Pocket Card Jockey. Yeah, Nicholas.
Yeah.
I'm getting a sense of excitement from you about this. Horse racing solitaire. It's making its comeback, baby.
Yo, you know it. I will make the claim that this is probably one of the best games Game Freak has put out in the last decade. I would argue it's better than the majority of Pokemon games they've been putting out recently.
Wow, that's a big
I love Pocket Card Jockey.
Okay. So you've got to be very excited about this. So Game Freak announced they're making basically a remastered version of this game for Apple Arcade, and I think it's already out. So it's pretty much the same game, but just with some different visuals. But now there's talk that in an interview with Polygon, they said, they haven't ruled out a version for the Switch. They said that we want to see the reaction that we get from this remaster, and then we'll think about next steps after that. So there's a chance, Nicholas. There's a chance you can play this game on the Switch.
It's like the most fun time waster I've ever played.
Okay, so how does it work exactly? Is it really just solitaire?
I haven't played in a few years, so I don't fully remember, but essentially, the premise is great too. The premise is that you are an incompetent horse racer that falls off a horse, knocks your head, you get knocked to the ground and you almost die, and then God comes to you, takes pity on you, and is like, okay, I'll make you a good horse racer, but you have to get good at solitaire while racing on the horse. It's great. It is amazing. And so the way the game plays out is basically there's a horse racing element to it where you can breed different horses together, and the horses have special abilities. But the crux of it is in a race you have a solitaire board that you fill out, and depending on how well you do on the solitaire board, your horse gets certain boosts or moves more or less fast in the actual racing portions. And the racing portions you don't have a lot of control. What you essentially do is just map out the path you take, and then the section starts and your horse takes that path, and depending on what the other NPCs do, you get better or worse results. But the better you do in your solitaire board, the more advantage you'll have, because the faster your horse will be, the stronger it'll be, the less it'll get jostled around. So it's all kind of like a balance of those two elements, which is kind of increased by the fact that the horses themselves have special traits, like I'd mentioned. And so there's also that element of strategy of depending on what your horse might specialize in, you might go for different things when getting your solitaire board, or you might try and go on the inner track, the outer track, and the front and the back when actually racing. There's a surprising amount of depth to it, and it's just one of those. It's one of those
it sounds
just
it.
one more try games. I just want to do one more.
Right, and it's not like you're playing a full round of solitaire, right? It's like a more condensed
it's like a small table.
Was my
and
impression.
the way it works is essentially you have a time limit, so you have to get as much of that solitaire board cleared out within the time limit.
I can see that being a pretty frantic experience. Would imagine solitaire being a fast-paced thing, But I could see that being quite the addicting.
Addicting is the right word.
It's funny because every single person that I see talking about the game that has actually played is completely in love with the game. This is the best thing that Game Freak has ever seen. And I always see the gameplay and I'm like, oh my god, I don't see that just watching the game.
You're I don't get it. Yeah.
But it's those experiences that you have to actually play to understand it, right? So. Yeah, I think it would be nice to have it on Switch with 3D graphics, and because I was seeing the Apple version and it seems to be a little more, it has a little more refined presentation, so it would be nice to see a port.
Yeah, I did buy the original version for my 3DS, just kind of in the wake of the eShop closing. Now I kind of wish I had waited, because if it's coming to Switch, that seems like maybe where I'd prefer to play it, but I don't know. We'll see if it even happens. Hopefully it does, because I think Game Freak has had some good successes with some of their smaller projects, and I would like to see them do more of it. Branch out from Pokemon from time to time.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they also had that one rhythm game
Harmonite.
that they put out. The name, Harmonite. That one got some great.
They
feedback.
Also have Little Town Hero though.
JRPG on.
So
there's they don't always land. So yeah, that's for sure. But I at least it's good that they're experimenting though, because you never know how that could lead to maybe innovations in their future games.
I mean, listen, if Pokemon gets a horse racing solitaire minigame, you have ponitas and whatever that you have to raise, and you race with them while playing Pokemon Solitaire, you've got me sold. I'll buy the game.
There you go. So you're saying making sandwiches is not necessarily
not enough gambling there.
mechanic for you. Okay. And there's like, it can be a gamble, you know. You never know if you'll like the sandwich, not
Will
like
it even stay together? Will the physics engine work?
Yeah, it's the sandwich physics engine. Yeah, it's important. Oh man. All right, one more just kind of absurd story to round out the week. Now, as you all know, we've been graced with many unique Nintendo characters over the year. We've got Rabid Rosalina now in Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope. We've had Linkle, you know. We've had Bowsette, which, you know, there's a whole backstory behind that one we're not going to get into. But yeah, you know, we learned this week that we could have had something even greater. We could have had Walupeach. Waluigi and Peach's cursed combination. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about this other than, so I guess someone pitched this at Nintendo and Miyamoto just shot it down, which is just hilarious.
I think that was the right call.
I don't think every Nintendo character needs an evil version of themselves, to be fair.
I mean, Waluigi is already a stretch, all right? I think I don't know.
But now I'm just thinking of the combinations. Like we could have had Walu Daisy. We could have had Walu.
I don't know.
You know, Walu Bowser. Like this could be a whole.
I don't know. I
thing.
want to see what the internet would look like if we had Walupeach and Walu Daisy and Walu Rosalina and Walu Pauline. It would be a scary place.
I mean, this rumor coming out is already enough reason for the internet to start its work, right? I'm sure there's already a lot of artworks of Walupeach.
Yes, this is true. The fans will do what the fans will do.
Yeah.
And at this point, we should just embrace it.
Also, Nick, it's worth pointing out, you mentioned Bowsette earlier. Keep in mind, Bowsette is not an official character. That was purely fan art.
Exactly.
I'm aware of this, but let's be honest, Bowsette basically feels like a real character at this point.
It feels.
Like, people were asking Nintendo to, like, make Bowsette canon, and it could happen, guys. It's not too late.
No, that Super Crown has been locked inside a vault. You're never seeing it again.
It was just a small update to New Super Mario Bros. U. They never imagined that something like this would happen.
This has destructive power far beyond our reckoning.
But to be honest, I think Walupeach, it's better than something like Pink Gold Peach, right? I think it's time to start to design some new characters for the Mario franchise. Because when you think about it, I think the last actual original big character was like Rosalina that I can remember. Because even Super Mario Odyssey, I only think of Pauline, but Pauline is not a new character.
I mean, the way they've redesigned her sort of makes her new, but even then, that's a stretch.
Yeah.
Rosalina really is.
It was a renaissance of sorts.
Rosalina really is like the last big one.
Well, I don't know if you guys remember. I think we might have talked about it on the show at one point, but remember there was that whole report came out where they basically uncovered that Nintendo, Miyamoto basically, he was like shooting down ideas for new Mario characters. They said they didn't want to introduce new characters to the brand, and like that was why like the Paper Mario games, for example, they've mostly just been like giving us like talking Goombas and stuff like that because they didn't want to create
I mean, that report has always been
characters.
weird though, because it's not like the games haven't had any new characters. Like Mario Odyssey had a T-Rex and a Skyrim dragon. The Mario and Luigi characters have had new characters even after like Sticker Star came out. Odyssey had like different species and whatnot introduced in it.
Yeah, but like I think they mean like talking like main narrative characters rather than like bosses and enemies and things like that.
Yeah, it feels like the main roster, I think for this the safety of the brands, they want the main character to be consistent, right? Peach, Mario, Waluigi, Wario, the same faces that we always see on the sports games, for example. So maybe that's one of the reasons, but I don't like the because if you look back to characters that we saw in Paper Mario 64, Paper Mario on the GameCube, the Thousand Year Door, those characters never appeared again. They were close to that game, so I don't see a major issue to the brands to create those characters for a specific game. So it's always weird.
I mean, I think if we're talking about characters that became household names, because like I think Pauline does kind of fit in that category in a way, because prior to her kind of big moment in Odyssey, she was basically just in like the Mario Minis spin-offs, right? It was only after Odyssey that it was like, yeah, you know, she'll be in the sports games. We'll put her in this. We'll put her in that. So in a way, she's kind of a character that they brought forwards to like the spotlight, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, I've kind of been meaning to go back and like dive a little bit deeper into like the early history of like Mario's like. Okay, so like I've never played Super Mario RPG, and I really want to because of just like how strange of a Mario experience it's supposed to be compared to everything else. Because yeah, we're not really getting those same types of riskier, more experimental Mario games, I would argue, nowadays, like we used to. It just seems like Nintendo's kind of past that era of the
now
character.
we're at not great sports games that have like 2 months of content updates before disappearing forever.
Right. Although, I mean, hey, you know, they are taking a big risk with the character with Chris Pratt. I mean, that's a version of Mario we've
what do you
never
mean?
seen
He's
before.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I don't know. I don't have anything to say about that.
I mean, at least for the movie, I like that rule. Like, I like that the fact that the movie only has Mario characters. I wouldn't like to see like Illumination creating anything new for the movie. I would like to, because Mario already has a big history, right? So for this first movie, I'm actually glad that they're only using the Mushroom Kingdom.
And it's also fun how they're kind of expanding on them. Like you have an actual Penguin Kingdom. It's using established elements and kind of growing those instead of just trying to create something new.
Expanding their world, yeah.
Yeah. I will admit, I do want to see that movie. Mostly out of just curiosity to see what they're gonna do with the characters and all that. It'll be interesting one way or another. It may not be good, but it'll be interesting at the very least.
It feels like it's further away than that.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, I think I'm kind of lucky compared to you guys because I'm going to watch with the Brazilian dub, and so far it sounds way better than the ones that you guys are getting. So at least in that department, I know that I'm not going to hear Chris Pratt, so I'm more excited for the movie.
I think in the defense of the English dub, other than Chris Pratt, I have no real complaints with the voice acting. So.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, how can you really? I mean, it's an all-star cast, Nicholas. What's not to love? Oh, man. All right, well, before we wrap up, let's go to our segment about new releases for the week. Now, we already talked about the heavy hitters, so this is going to be a shorter segment this week. But did want to shout out a few projects that we've mentioned in the past. Louise, I know you're excited for this one, A Space for the Unbound. The slice of life adventure game. It's kind of got the surreal elements. It's set in 90s Indonesia. I know you were really excited when that one was announced. Are you planning on playing it anytime soon?
Yeah, so I was following this game recently, and I had some friends here in Brazil who have a website, Nintendo related, and they received this game for review. And my friends actually gave this game a 10. So nice. I was already super excited, and now reading what he has to say to me about the game and all that stuff, I was super curious to actually play, because apparently the story is really, really great. It's kind of a cozy experience, but it also has some epic elements, so there's a nice balance. And the gameplay, like, it seems to me like there's nothing actually like it. It's one of those games who never actually repeats itself a lot. Every time you're doing something different, there are points where it looks like a fighting game. There are points where it looks more like a visual novel. So there's a big mix of genres here. And it seems to be also... Because usually those indie games focus on the narrative, I always expect them to be really short, like something along the 3 hours, 4 hours mark. And my friends actually finished this game with 12 hours, so it seems to be a reasonable amount of content here. So yeah, I'm still very excited to play it.
Yeah, I'll be curious to hear your thoughts if you do have a chance to, because yeah, I've heard only really great things about this game. It's getting great reviews for pretty much all the reasons you mentioned: the story, the ambiance, the just general variety of it, and it just feels very different than a lot of other narrative games that have come out. So yeah, it's definitely a higher priority game for me. It's been in development for a while, so I'm glad that overall it's getting the love that it seems to deserve.
Yeah.
So yeah, A Space for the Unbound, that is out now on the Switch. And the other just kind of interesting indie game that came out this year that we have talked about previously is the remake of Colossal Cave. Or I guess more of a reimagining. Because as many of you may know, the original was a text-based adventure game. This is like a full-on 3D action-adventure game. I'm not still totally sure how it plays. It almost like looks like an RPG in its like style, but I think it plays more like an adventure game, like a 3D kind of, almost like something like The Witness or like something with some more point and click elements. It's kind of hard to pin down. It's a very kind of cross genre game, it seems like. So yeah, I haven't heard too much buzz about this one, but they're really pushing it hard. It's coming to VR also, so yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one to see how it lands.
I do think
with folks.
the concept itself is probably pretty niche, because I don't know how many people nowadays are going to be that interested in a remake of a 70 something text adventure game. But I think it's really neat, honestly. Just the concept of that in and of itself is very original and different. I can't think of another game that's had a remake in this style. And I mean, looking at the game run, it seems charming. It seems like an interesting first-person adventure game.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on there. It doesn't seem like it's for me, but I think there probably are folks who own the Switch who played this original game way back, and to see it reimagined is probably really cool for a lot of people. So, so I hope it lands for those folks out there at the very least. All right, well, that just about wraps up our show for the week. Thank you everyone who has tuned in and gotten to this point in the episode. But before we go, we're going to close out with our classic segment, What Has Everyone Been Playing Lately? And Louise, God, we really need to snap your name for that. I am open to suggestions. If anyone has a snap your name for what have we been playing,
We're gonna
leave it in the
workshop that.
comments, and we are open. We're gonna workshop that. Yes, Louise, what have you been playing this past week?
So actually this week I've not been playing a lot of games. As you guys probably remember, I was playing Danganronpa 2, but I kind of give it a pause right now. I've been watching some movies, reading a little bit. I think usually it's getting close to the Oscar presentation, so usually I like to watch all the movies that are going to be indicated and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
Yesterday, actually, I bought 2 games on my Xbox that I wanted to buy for a while, and now they were on a really reasonable price. I bought, and they were Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Generations, both Sonic experiences that were in that generation of the PS3 and the 360. I actually bought my Series S thinking about these games because I said I want to buy those games because I don't have them on PC and I really want to play them again. Sonic Generations I actually finished, and Sonic Unleashed I never played to the end. So now, right now, I'm actually playing Sonic Generations, and it's just a wonderful game because it's not really long, so you can finish like in 1 or 2 days. So I just have a blast playing all those levels and enjoying the spectacle and the soundtrack. Because I think as a Sonic fan, usually with 3D Sonic games, I'm not super into the gameplay, but I really like the soundtrack and the visuals, and I think they really do the heavy lifting for me a lot of the times. And
yeah, that's fair.
In the case of Sonic Generations, the level design is also one of the best in the series. So it is overall a really solid experience, and that's what I've been playing
Those
right now.
games are 60 FPS too, right?
Yeah.
On the series.
Yes, they are running. They are beautiful on my 4K TV. I don't know if they are actually upscale, if there's something like that, but they are running on 60 FPS. On the specific of Sonic Unleashed, that game had a lot of frame drops on the PS3, so it's now a very different experience on the new generation.
Yeah, it's the general consensus with these, playing these games on the modern day Xbox platforms is that it's kind of the best way to do it because
Exactly.
the Xbox systems are doing so much work to upscale the game, have them run in a higher frame rate as well. It's really impressive technology, and it's kind of a shame that they're not really porting more of the 360 and Xbox games to the new Xbox backwards compatibility anymore. Because, I mean, it's just done some incredible things. Like, I played through, similarly, Red Dead Redemption on my Xbox Series X. And if you compare how that game performs on that console and how it looks compared to its original release, it's like crazy. It's like the definitive way to play the game nowadays. So whatever wizardry they're working.
I mean, I would love to see Nintendo doing the same thing. Like, if I could just go to the eShop and buy some GameCube games, and then I run them, they are all upscaled and stuff like that. Man, that would be awesome. My brother actually bought Red Dead Redemption on the Series S, so I know that it runs amazing. And I also have Grand Theft Auto 4, which runs super poorly on the PS3 at the time. And now on Series S, is everything super smooth at 60 FPS. So yeah, it's amazing to see that automatic upgrades on those old games.
Yeah, it does just kind of make you hope that when we do get whatever the next Nintendo console is, that if it has some form of backwards compatibility, we will get similar level of performance boost. Exactly. I doubt it would happen, but I would love to see them.
Yeah, we can always hope.
Yes, we can
let's
hope
settle
and
for
dream.
now for
Nicholas,
them not making us pay another $30 on the subscription service.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, I'd settle for that. maybe not having to restart the entire thing for the next generation. That would be nice too. Being like, we're gonna go back and we're gonna give you all your NES games, and then you have to wait.
Side note, but I really hope that when we move on to the next generation, they actually bother using the current Nintendo account system to help us port games over, because having to do this well,
that's the whole idea.
Having
right?
to do this 3 systems in a row, I'm so tired of that.
It will be too much.
Please let us keep our games.
Yeah, everyone's done. Everyone's done with it. Yeah, I'm with you. Well, Nicholas, what have you been playing lately? Anything exciting?
Honestly, not a whole lot. A lot of stuff has started up this week for me, so I haven't had too much time to get into anything. I did just play Mario Party Superstars with a couple of friends for the first time last night. That's about it. And I mean, that was fun. It's a fun game. I sort of wish that they had done more with it in terms of just giving more boards and whatnot. But the current package is fun. It's Mario Party.
Yeah.
It's actually good Mario Party.
Yeah, I mean, how, you're taking all basically classic boards and minigames and making them shiny, what's not to love?
It was great. Lots of star stealing. Someone got a hidden block on the last turn that determined the winner. All your classic Mario Party tropes.
Yep.
I bought this one day one, and I had some great moments with my friends, but it's just a little disappointing to see that Nintendo does not update those games, because it does feels like it could have a little more boards and stuff like that.
There's literally 10 games worth of content you could update it with. More than that if you count the DS ones and whatnot.
But just a note about the Mario Party series in general on the Switch. Those games look super good. Like, they are super crisp. The graphics are really nice, and they don't need to be. But I'm just impressed how good they look on the Switch.
Yeah, it's not the kind of game that I play all the time. It really is something that's reserved for when I have a group of friends over, which is not all the time. But when we do break out the Mario Party, it's always a hit. And I do think Superstars in particular is a very solid version of that game, for sure. Well, as far as what I've been playing this past week, I'm mostly trying to finish up a couple things in anticipation for the big February busy season. I'm still kind of working my way through the Final Fantasy VII remake. I'm on the expansion for that game that focuses on Yuffie. Her character gets a huge expanded story arc in the remake, and yeah, I've really been enjoying it. It's a much faster paced combat wise compared to the base game. Her voice acting and character is just very charming. It's a great expansion, and it really has me curious to see what the next part of this whole remake series will look like and how they're going to continue to expand on these characters.
It's also just a nice way of doing it, because in the original FF7, Yuffie was, I think, a completely optional party member. You just randomly found in a forest somewhere. So actually using this to flesh the character into the story a bit more is a clever decision. It works well.
Is this like a lengthy experience, like a big expansion, like a whole new game, would you say, or not quite?
I mean, it probably could have been a standalone release. I mean, I'm about 6 hours into it, and I feel like I still have quite a ways more to go. It's probably going to be like a 12-hour thing if I had to guess.
That sounds about right.
Interesting.
It feels pretty substantial. I mean, not a ton of like side content. There is a whole new, basically, mini game that they added called Fort Condor, which is like it's like a real-time strategy kind of experience, like a fictional board game within the world of the game. Which I actually have been having more fun with it than I thought I would.
Nick, have you played the original FF7? Okay. Right.
No, I have not. In fact,
the Fort Condor portions are actually something from the original game, but done differently. Where in the original game, it was an area that you would go to that had the same kind of... It was a similar thing to, I think, the mini game in Intergrade, where you would have to be defending a Phoenix Egg from a whole bunch of attackers, kind of like a tower defense game. But it was just something you had to go back, like physically go back to this location over and over and over throughout the entire length of the game. And it got a little frustrating and irritating, even if there were some cheese methods for it. So the way that they've taken that and kind of condensed it into like one nice, neat little mini game for this little expansion is actually also really clever.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that context because I kind of did get the sense that I was like missing out on something, like that this was a reference to something in the past, but I wasn't told. I thought it was a brand new thing. But yeah, it just goes to show like they really have put a lot of work into reimagining the different elements of that game in some really creative ways, and it all just feels very fluid. It all just feels like it works, at least to me. But yeah, so I've been enjoying that, and I've also been playing, this kind of on the side, I've been playing a little bit of Taiko no Tatsujin. It's bonkers. It's a Japanese rhythm game where you're just hitting taiko drum. You got two options. You hit the inside of the drum or you hit the outside of the drum. But it gets pretty fast paced and pretty difficult. The thing that is just really always just cracks me up about this game is just the song variety. Like, you're gonna go from playing like theme songs to like major animes like Naruto and One Piece and stuff like that, and then you'll also have like Last Christmas, like the classic Christmas song, or you'll have a song from the Jackson 5. Like it's so interesting. And we didn't get these games in the West for a long time, and now they've put so many of them on the Switch over the past few years. There's one on Game Pass, which is the version I've been playing lately, because I didn't want to spend any money. And so it's a good time killer for sure.
Did they end up bringing the actual like drum accessory over to the West, or is that still Japan exclusive?
I would say I don't think it's been officially brought over, but you can easily order it off Amazon, and it feels like it's been released here. I haven't played it with the physical drum plugin for the Switch, but I did actually play it in an arcade in Japan when I took that trip.
Wow.
Yeah, they actually have the like huge like physical arcade versions of this game with like an actual drum, and you pick up like actual drum like stick, and you have to like bang on it, and you look ridiculous. But that was kind of how I like found out about it and fell in love with it. And so then when I saw that they were bringing them over, I was like actually very excited.
I have the Switch version, and I expected it to be really authentic because the two Joy-Cons are really, like with the motion capture, they are really like the perfect console to play this. But the fact that you are not actually hitting something with the control makes it feel a little weird. Like, it lacks that punchiness that I think you should have. So even on the Switch, I prefer to play with the actual buttons. It does.
What you guys need to do is get the GameCube controller adapter, hook that into the Switch dock, and then grab your DK bongos.
Of course.
Wait,
that would be the perfect way to play it.
I'm pretty sure the GameCube, the bongos just read as a controller, so I think theoretically it would work.
I think it can work. Yeah.
Wow, that's wild. I don't know if I'm going to try that, but I might be persuaded to import that drum controller if I pick up the Switch versions of these games. What I do want to do eventually, but I was just like, again, this is one of those things where I really feel like Nintendo should have a competing option. But like, I was about to go buy one of the Taiko no Tatsujin games on the Switch because it had like a bundle, and I was like, oh, I could do this. But then I was looking into it, I was like, oh shoot, there's one on Game Pass, and it's leaving at the end of the month. I was like, maybe I should just go play that one, you know? And
yeah,
so
it's hard competition when you have on Game Pass. Yeah.
And like, I would rather play it on the Switch, but ultimately, sometimes it does come down to the finances of it. I'm like, why would I go spend $30 on this game when I can play something very similar, you know?
I have that dilemma a lot of the times, and it's very specific. Sometimes I think the Switch version really deserves, I have to pay to have the Switch version, but a lot of the times I just go for the Game Pass.
Yeah. Well, that was how I felt with Lumens, which I think I mentioned on the last week's episode. I was like, that was a game where I was like, this just feels like I want to play this on Switch. And so I had no problem buying it and playing it there. But yeah, it really just depends on the game, I feel like. And of course, it's easier too when you're not in the busy, expensive release season when everyone wants to play is coming out. All right, folks. Well, that is it for episode 40 of Nintendo Everything Refresh. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in and supporting our show. If you like what you've been listening to, please spread the word, tell your friends, share out links on social. We are all about trying to get new listeners onto the show this year so we can continue to bring new and exciting show ideas and giveaways and all kinds of stuff like that. So please spread the word. We are on every major audio streaming platform. We've got the video version over on YouTube. And thank you, as always, for listening. We will be back at you next week with everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. See you guys later.